Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Here we are in February. It's February 11th, and the Super Bowl's over. I won't give you the score, who won in overtime, but there's a lot of people happy in Kansas City. So that being said and done, please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment if you want to leave a comment. Visit our website, legendofthesuperstitionmountains.com. Got the bark notes. You can pick up cats, cups, ball caps, whatever you might need. Who knows? Maybe we'll have refrigerators on there eventually, or our own brand of beer or wine. Let me do that again, okay? So we just finished up yesterday. It was the 90th anniversary of the first trek of the Dawns. Did a hike out to Garden Valley. Everything went great. Came back in. Thought about trying to use that footage, but there's so much to do with it to get it set up, and we thought we'll just do that in one big full form. So that will be coming, that trip and all the dialogue that was on it, for myself and Greg Davis, so you can look forward to that in the future. And then, of course, there was a lot going on today, and a barbecue, and then we had to do a Chasing Legends. And I had this in mind for a while back. Now, we get a lot of times people say, you know, we will present new books. We did Ron Feldman's, Jesse Feldman's, Jack Sanfelice's, and we'll do a little thing and dialogue back and forth with you and tell you about the book and where to get it. And I thought we should once in a while do a book of, like, because people always say, what book should I get? And, you know, we tend to lean towards Sim Zealy or read the Bark Notes or go with Barry Storm. And I thought we should go with the easiest available, something to break people in. And if there's one book you should buy right from the start, if you don't own it, this is the book to start everything with in the collection. If you have this book, great. If you don't, read it again. If you don't have this book, get yourself a copy. It's called Superstition Mountain, A Ride Through Time by Tom Colborn and Jim Swanson. But it's mainly written by Tom, and we'll kind of go through this a bit. Having read, and you can too, is look up Tom Colborn, the Kollenborn Chronicles on the internet. A lot of the articles he used in here. If you read the Kollenborn Chronicles, other pieces by Tom, because he wrote probably 10 or 12 different books, and some he wrote specifically by himself, you'll realize that Tom Colborn pretty much wrote this book. And I know Jim was involved in it, and Jim's a really nice guy, but I'm going to always refer to this book as Tom's book, because it is, and everything to do with Tom. Tom wrote Legends of the Superstition Mountains, Circle Stone. I know there's the chronology of the Superstition Mountains. He did the Apache Trail book. There's a number of other bits and pieces of source material. But this is the one everyone should start with. It came out in '81. The book came out in several different editions. If you're very, very, very lucky, you'll find one of the very limited presidential editions. There was a very limited amount of those put out. And one of them was given to Ronald Reagan. They're hardbound, and I think they're in leather. Then he did a special 100 copies edition, and I've known where a couple of those are circulating, but those were very special editions. And then he did a run, I think at that time, of 2,500 of the hardcovers. First editions, I have several of those. They should have the dust jackets and all, and if you ever go to open up the dust jackets, if I can get this one here open, but it is kind of a gold bound in there on the book binding. Great book. Tom would reprint this again. He did another limited edition of 100 copies, and then he did another 2,500 copies hardbound. And this is in the early 80s. Then shortly after that, Tom started to go to the softcover editions. Let me get one here that has the first of those editions. Pretty easy to recognize because they're soft cover. And he did usually 20 runs of 2,500 of those. And then he'd sometimes run, I think the first time he ran those, he ran another set of these, the hardcovers. And then that was pretty much, there was one more limited edition of hardcovers, I think, when he first ran those, and that was it. And I think it might have been 100 or 112 or something. So these are a lot harder to find, the hardcovers. They're really nicely bound. And a lot of these you'll find the signatures, because people usually who bought them, Tom signed them. So most all of these have his signature in them. Then later, as we got into the 90s, it got interesting. You will find the ones that say revised edition. There's a couple little changes. Nothing major that you're going to be disappointed in. But, no, this one actually has Tom's funeral piece in it. And I guess this is kind of, and the newspaper article in his obituary in there. Anyhow, Tom released these. Now, this is an odd one, because once you get into the soft covers, in 1991 and 1993, they would print usually a run of 2,500 copies. I think in 98 or 99, they ran another 2,500 copies. But the 5th and 6th edition, which were printed in 91 and 93, both say the 5th edition. There's no way to tell them apart. So nobody knows if they have a 5th or 6th edition. The 6th edition is known as, I think, the 98-99 run, which was another 2,500. What happened was the printer accidentally printed 5th edition in the 93 edition, so technically the 6th edition was printed in 93, another 2,500. So there's 5,000 copies of that 5th edition, but they actually were printed over 2 different years. And from what I've ever been able to see in my collection, I could never see if there was ever a difference, and I've been told there is no zero difference between the two. But it is a most interesting book. When Tom wrote this, he kind of was paraphrasing the Chronicles, but it covers pretty much everything going in yet you need to know. It's not depth research. It's Tom in his best storytelling mode. And he does a great job. I mean, it has a nice little letter, and, you know, from Bob Corbin at the beginning. It has really nicely done photographs. I think even the soft covers, the photographs are excellent. It covers Ed Piper and Celeste Jones. It covers Adolph Ruth. It covers just about everyone initially in the mountains that you're going to want to hear about. Has a couple little maps and different things. But it is one of the best reads you can come from, because it's still relevant, even though it was written 40 years ago. It still sets relevant, and Tom never really puts his opinion in the pieces. It was the stuff that he felt furthered the story and the tale and information you needed to know about the Dutchman the most. It's entertaining. It's an easy, good read. If you haven't read this, if you do not own this, pick it up. You won't be sorry. It's available still at the Superstition Mountain Museum, Tortilla Flats gift shop, Goldfield Ghost Town at the gift shops there, and you can order it on Amazon. They've made sure that it's continued to be published and out there in the public. Now, I did a sequel to it, and we'll cover that sometime. But this book, you know, whether it's James Cravey or, like I said, Adolph Ruth, it'll have the information on Tex Barkley, Doc Rosekrans, who we did the videos with, where he was in the videos. And I think Tom was doing the interviewing in that video. But it has even the Celeste Jones, Ed Piper feud and some information about that. So the part about this that makes it so interesting to me is it talks a little about Tom in the character of James Colton, which is what he wrote as from that perspective early on. And then he went back to Tom Colborn later. But Tom knew most everybody in this book. Now, he didn't know Adolph Ruth, but he knew Brownie Holmes and had met him. He knew most of these particular people. Al Morrow's got a chapter in this book. Doc Rosekrans got a chapter in this book. Ed Piper, Celeste Jones. Tom ran into and met all these people. So while he doesn't make them personal narrative stories, he does he's familiar with the material, and he's kind of put you in place there. I don't think there's probably a more authentic book that just kind of tells you this is what the general belief is in the story. If you're a stone map person, you won't find the stone maps in here. If Tom really didn't think it was really truly relevant to the entire story, treasure maps, that sort of thing, most of that stuff isn't centered in here. It's not that book. It's the book that gets you really prepped and kind of gets you start thinking and gives you names and dates and things to kind of work on. I always highly recommend it. It's always in my top 5. I always think from a research point of view and certain things in eras, sometimes you might go a different route. But if you're going to pick up a book for the first time, and we talked about this a little on the Garden Valley hike, this is the book. You will always find it with the yellow cover, whether it's softback or hardback. If you get the hardback, good for you, lucky. I usually find them pretty decent and keep a few around. And once in a while, there's someone who just cannot find one for whatever reason, and then I'll just part with a copy. But the remaining copies, I think, were all hand signed personally to me from Tom, and I've hold on to those because obviously I'm not getting any more signed, and they kind of have, over different periods of time and relationship with Tom, he signed them differently. They all have different inscriptions in them. So someday Trevor will end up with all these books with Tom's inscriptions and stuff. But it is one of the best books you can possibly pick up. And Tom's personal insight on his time in the mountains and so forth kind of comes through in these books. I don't think you can go wrong. It's not saying other books are garbage compared to this or which one's number one, but I think if you're putting your feet in the water, or even if they've been there for a while, it's a great read. He's not going to get controversial. He's not going to be too opinionated. He's just going to tell you kind of what he knew, and there is a personal touch because, like I said, most of the people in this book, Tom met. He knew them. He'd met them on the trail or working in the mountains. And you have to remember, his time in the mountains goes back from the 40s all the way until he passed away. So he knew the who's who probably better than anyone who ever was in the mountains or traveled, outside of possibly, I would say maybe Bill Barkley, because he was back in there until his death for so long that he would have had so many people cross paths and go through the mountains with him. Maybe Brownie Holmes, but I think you had to be in the right place, right time, and Tom was probably the right person to meet all these people. So if you pick up that book and then you go read the Kollenborn Chronicles, you'll find those are much shorter, more like the cliff notes of some of these chapters. And you can't go wrong because you'll get a lot of insight in the mountains. There could be a few discrepancies, but even Tom was always trying to watch his material to make sure if there was something that wasn't quite right, he made sure he kind of stayed in the safe zone. So it's a good book, but it's not a fantasy book like other books where they kind of go so opinionated or so much into fantasy land trying to explain their theory or what they think the solution is. Tom never attempts that any time in these books. And that's probably what the best part of it is. It's a great starting point to get a kind of a toe in the water and understand it. This is, if you had to ask me, this book, you buy it, you have the Wikipedia of the Lost Dutchman Mine for the most part. And it is the best book there possibly is for getting started, or even if you've been there a time or two to read through it. And if you knew Tom or you met Tom, I encourage you to take it off the bookshelf and go back through it. Read through it, check it out, relive the memories, because Tom told so many stories outside of this, and he included some in his second book that was supposed to be the sequel to this with a different title. But it kind of, you hear the echoing of Tom's voice in all this. For some reason, Tom got into a point he didn't like hearing his own voice, the sound of his own voice. And I know that's for all of us. It's a bit weird to see yourself in a video or on television or hear your voice in an interview. But Tom just didn't care for it to the point where he just didn't like doing that stuff much anymore. When we did Legends, what relaxed him is he was in the room with me and Frank. Some of it was just kind of us off the cuff, just kind of talking and going for it. He kind of a couple times gave us that side eye. He wasn't happy or didn't like, and we'd have to restart again and all because, Tom was Tom. But I mean, if you got Tom rolling into it and about talking about some things and he got momentarily interested, he could lose himself very quickly in it, which was one of the wonderful things about him, is when he lost himself into it, you always knew there was great information coming out. So it was a great time, and getting to know him was wonderful. But he left us these books, and this book is the book. So go to the Superstition Mountain Museum, go Goldfield Ghost Town, Tortilla Flats, anywhere else. I'm just not trying to hawk books for anybody else. I think I don't think anybody's making anything off this. I think Jim Swanson said the book mainly, they're just get the right to publish the book, and probably the profits or proceeds go to whatever business or whatever. I don't think anybody's out there marketing. And like I said, there was 2,500 copy runs. The last one was a 99, but I know they're still running off hard or soft covers. I don't know if they'd ever run another hard cover. I'll have to ask Jim about that sometime. But I would think it's safe to say there's got to be 25,000 copies of this over the years. Because over the last 20 years, I haven't seen what printings are still coming out. So there still has to be a certain amount of printings. I'm sure they're not updating what they have. I know they had to print more because they were out. So there you go. The book of the month, or the book of the bi-monthly. Maybe we'll do a one every 8 or 9 episodes, cover a book in depth. But Superstition Mountain, A Ride Through Time. Great cover. Like I said, the photographs are great. Tom did a great job on the first generation photographs. So everything about it, Jabez Clapp in there, just everything. Really nice on the back on the dust jacket. Really great picture of Tom and Jim back in the mountains. Tom on Crow. And the cover, of course, is definitely Tom on Crow with probably, I'm sure that's the drawing is of Duke with him back out there going towards Weaver's Needle. So a nice sentimental cover for that too. So easy to find, yellow, hardback, or the soft cover. And it's called, and the way you can tell the later editions is, this is the history of the Superstition Mountains on the bottom. But when you get the later editions, when the second book come out, you'll find it says part 1 of the Superstition Mountain series. This part 2 was the other book, and it'll say revised edition on it. So there you go. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. Super Bowl Sunday's gone. We're back out in the mountains, Discovery Camp and things, but the next event coming up is the Treasure Hunt of the Year Awards, March 15th at Goldfield Ghost Town at the Mammoth Saloon. It'll be a Friday night, so for once we'll be able to kind of let our hair down, relax afterwards, and get to do some talking, because that's one thing that always kind of sucks, is that, you know, it's a work night and we all have to go home. So it's like we finish up and we got to just get out of there. You can't stay very late. This year will be nice to be able to kind of breathe easy and sit back and spend a little time talking to each other, because each year we go, there's a few less of us left, and that's going to be very interesting to kind of revisit and catch up, even though we caught up at the rendezvous, and a bunch of us caught up during this past early part of the year. But it will be good to see us all then, and the living members of this Treasure Hunters Hall of Fame group, as we got the 2 guys have been picked for the 2 awards, and hopefully they will be there, and we don't announce who the winners are, the culprits, or whatever you want to call them, until that evening. But it'll be an enjoyable, nice evening for there, hosted by myself and Bob Shoes, the mayor of Goldfield. So there you go. Check out our website, like I said earlier. Watch the weather. Weather's coming out nice here. We got through those last storms. So now that we're through the storms, we're going to get probably some cooler and clear weather going into the springtime. So we got about a month or so before the snakes and everything start coming out slowly but hard, because we had a nice wet winter right now. And that's usually every time we've had a nice wet winter before a nice warming spring, there's a lot of wildflowers, but then we start getting a lot of snakes. So keep in touch. Watch us here on Mondays. Will be the live Fridays. We'll still be pushing those. We will get the 90th anniversary Trek video together here in the next few weeks and present that, along with a couple other things. Remember to keep watching the television guides Monday nights on History Channel. History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. We did an episode with him. As we get closer and closer to that, we will get a video put together about my time going out and working on that project. So everybody kind of gets to see behind the scenes what it's like to kind of work with those production companies and work on one of those episodes. So that'll be kind of interesting and a little fun for everybody one Monday as well. So all that's coming forward. I know you're looking forward to it. But always remember, until the next time, what is it, Trevor? Okay. I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.